Alright, hi. So, starting off with my May Plan With Me video, I had already done everything in pencil, and here I am just going over with a kneaded eraser to get rid of some of those darker pencil lines. And then I'm using my Tombow Fluidinoske hard tip, the brush pen, to do some, cursive lettering for this quote that says, "The sun is a daily reminder that we too can rise again from the darkness and that we too can shine our own light." And I actually forget to dot an I and cross a T in this. I go back and cross the T later, but I didn't dot the I until off camera, so sorry if that bugs you. I'm also using my Tombow Fluidinoske brush pens in, let's see, have them in my backpack here. Number 933 is the orange color, and then oh my gosh, and then the yellow one is 993, hence why I was confused. So now here I'm switching to some hard press watercolor paper. So it's kind of textured. I'm not sure how well you can see that on the screen. And then I'm setting out my gold watercolors as well as the reds and yellows from my Koi set. So in those I use the carmine, vermilion hue, yellow ochre, deep yellow, and lemon yellow. And then I also end up using some gouache. I have a white Winsor Newton gouache as well as a primary yellow and a primary magenta, and those are Holbein? I don't know. And then I also ended up using some of the ivory black from the Koi set as well. And I think I want to fix my lighting setup. So I used my tape, my painter's tape, to draw this circle, and then I went over it with my kneaded eraser again to kind of get rid of those dark lines, but leave just enough that I could still see it. And then I started off with this almost neon looking halo. It's a little bit more muted on the page. It's not quite as neon as it picks up here. And then I just start splashing down some reds and yellows and oranges, just to kind of cover that whole area. And I looked up some references as well, which you saw earlier, on my phone. So I had a picture kind of sitting where I could look at it, and those are pictures from NASA. But I just did a Google search to really make this sun theme a little bit more accurate, have it be a little bit more star-like instead of classic cartoon sunny summer sun with sunglasses theme. So I spend a lot of time kind of going back over, picking more paint, mixing different paint colors. But I really liked the texture once I started kind of sweeping my brush around to get those more like circular, like flare-ish looking pieces. Yeah, overall I'm really happy with how this turned out. It did take a while to paint and then, waiting for it to dry as well, but it was a fun process. And sorry about my head poking in. I think I need to do a different setup, a different camera setup, because I've noticed with recording that I love to be like right over the top of what I'm doing. So I'm gonna kind of experiment with that as well. For the next, few videos. Like, obviously this is my first video, so just trying my best. Yeah, and I recorded, here is where I made a mistake. I put too much black down. I hated it. You can see me being like, oh fuck, what do I do? And then I just make it worse, and then I just move on. I do go back and fix this afterward, and I think it ends up looking okay. It just looks like that whole bottom part ends up being a little bit darker. What I should have done is waited for it to dry completely, like gotten as much of it up as I could, and then waited for it to dry completely. But I was being really impatient, so you can see me here now getting it up with a paper towel, and that helped. But I should have even let that dry, like that was still damp. Because gouache is pretty opaque, so I could have waited and then gone over it, but I had stuff I needed to do, and I just wanted to get this done. So I just kind of kept layering and layering until I was okay with how it looked. And I'm happy with the final result. I think it looks pretty. So I have a piece of glass that my paper is taped to. So that's what I'm mixing on. You can see I ended up mixing the darker color just right on the glass, because I didn't really have room in my little bowl. And usually I use like larger palettes and stuff, and I actually use this glass as a palette for when I'm doing oil paints and whatnot. But I was just getting frustrated. So yeah, this is kind of the finishing steps. I went in there and put some sparkles in there, and then did that lettering, which I did a little off center. Whoops. With my that same Tombow from before, and then I added to it to make those downstrokes a little bit thicker, just to make it look a little bit more calligraphy-esque. It kind of made it look a little bit more messy, but whatever, it's fine. It's supposed to be explosive. It's the sun. And then I go back in there with I thought it was the same gold as before, just to put a little sparkle And I usually write the year, but then I realized that I don't need to because I have the year in the front of my notebook, and yeah, so I don't know. I might change my mind. I might go back to writing the year, but I might not. So we'll see. So this is just me waiting for it to dry, and then I finally get to take off the tape. It's so exciting yet terrifying. And then, so as you can see, the paper did buckle a little bit. And then I decided I didn't quite like the corners being cut off like that. So I just added a little bit more to kind of round out the sun. Since I did make it so big, it ended up getting like chopped off where the tape was. And I like it a lot better once I added a lot more of the flare to the sides and got rid of that like weird border, especially since there wasn't any background. Like maybe if I had painted the whole background, it would have been fine with a little bit of a border, but since it was so kind of like loose and expressive, I really wanted that to follow all the way around the sun. Going back to that spot again. All right, so now while I'm waiting for that to finish drying, I go back through, oh, I got my tea, and erase all that, and then I tape this, or I make sure it fits first. Oh yeah, and I write page numbers in the corner, and I don't usually do it on my cover pages, but I forgot and I wrote it there, so I just had some makeshift whiteout with my white jelly roll. And then this is the Tombow, what is it? Tombow Mono Permanent Adhesive. I just got it off Amazon, and I really like it. So once it's dry, I just put it kind of all around the back, and then stick it in there. And as you can see, I actually did this whole part of my planning first, but then I've cut it together to go in chronological order because the magic of video editing. So yeah, sorry, you're gonna see me mixing again. I use all the same colors. Actually, I don't think I used any of the magenta when I did this first one. And I hardly used any magenta on the cover page either. I used it a couple of times. But I decided I had stopped doing a monthly overview, but I decided that I wanted to do one, and with the sun, I was like, oh, maybe I'll do a circular monthly. I've seen some other people do that, and I thought it was an interesting way to lay out your month. And then that means there's not just a bunch of empty boxes, so I can just kind of make lines and write, you know, oh, this is due, or oh, you have this event, and then it's all kind of on one page, which is nice, rather than the weeklies and like having to switch back and forth through the weeklies. Although I do have another page that I always do at the beginning of a quarter, where I write down all the due dates for like all the important due dates, so like big due dates, not necessarily like readings or whatever, but I do have a page like that if you guys want to see how that's set up, or if you want to see my flip through. Like obviously it's the 5th month of the year, but I've been doing this for the whole year so far, so if people are interested, I can always like flip through and kind of show those things that I've done in the past, and like what I've found has worked and what hasn't. But yeah, I decided to paint this sun just like directly on my bullet journal, which by the way is a minimalism art journal. And the paper holds up like pretty decently as long as you don't load it up with water. There's usually a little bit of buckling. I don't really notice there being much with this page, but I honestly don't mind. I think it gives the book a little bit more character when like some of the pages have a little bit of texture. So I don't mind doing that in my book. And then it's pretty good with ghosting as long as you don't go over the same spots over and over. But even with watercolor, it's pretty decent, as you'll see when I flip to the next page. So I've got all my numbers in there. One thing I do wish that I had done with this is gone through with the kneaded eraser first, because some of those pencil lines just will not come out because I painted over them. All right, so this, I skipped through a little bit of this because it's a lot, but this is my mood tracker. I tried doing one of these for the whole year when I started my bullet journal, and I just don't use it. So I'm hoping that having one in each month will help me to like stay on track, because I would love to kind of track that and see if there are habits and whatnot. One thing I do notice looking at this now is I should probably write the dates next to each star. But these are just a bunch of like crazy sun looking. I got some inspiration from Pinterest. I didn't directly copy anything, but then I just, from worst to best, I tried to do from lightest to darkest, so lightest being the best, and then like my darkest red being the worst. But as you can see, I go over too many times with my Crayola Super Tip in the middle one, and the middle one's darker. So I don't know if I'm going to take some white out and fix that later or whatever. I don't know. We'll see when I start using it tomorrow. Today when you're seeing it. And then I do a little habit tracker. I didn't want to overload myself with habits. So I feel like if there's too much, I'm just not going to do it. And then I just quickly doodled another sun using my Tombows and some Crayola Super Tips. As well as I go through and add some gold paint. So that like gold sparkly shiny paint as well. So I just list the numbers down the side and then have my habits up top. I did end up adding one more habit out of this video. So I added meditate to the list because that's something I really want to start doing. And then this little box that I have on the far right. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. So I just quickly watercolored another sun in the corner since there was some open space there. I didn't think about with this I didn't think about with only doing like the sun as my theme. That is the word I was looking for. I didn't think about how, I would just have to draw a bunch of suns over and over and over again. But what I think I'm gonna do for my weeklies is I'm gonna kind of draw the like life cycle of the sun. We'll get to that if I make videos on it. Or, I'll post pictures or whatever. So this box is really just a simple box that says health tracker in it. I have some health issues that I'm trying to figure out. So I just wanted a space where I can start writing down my symptoms like as they come. And then pretty quickly for the next page, I just used my Tombos. I used a red as well, which is also in my backpack. Let's see. Okay. Oh, well, I don't know. I can look it down below. Nobody cares. It's red Tombow. But the red is a little too pink for my liking. So I tried to only put it over the orangey spots so that it would kind of like pick up that orange underneath. So I tested out what I wanted to do with the B, and then I kind of went through and started doing just this like bubble letter, weird lettering, which I'm fine with. And then I also used my Tombos for this part. Luckily, I remember that needed an eraser, and then I just kind of like scribbled this whole section, and then went over it with my Tombow Fudenosuke in black to the hard tip again to write notes on it, the word notes, not actual notes. Anyway, I think you got it. It's fine. You'll see in a second. Ta-da! All right. So, my first weekly spread, it's pretty simple. It's just got, I only do 6 days of the week because I know, like I work at the salon every Sunday, so I don't really need a list because I work from 9 a.m. I work from 10 a.m. till 7 p.m. So there's not a whole lot else that I do on Sundays. So I feel fine combining it with Saturday, if I put it on there at all. And then I start flipping stuff around to make that little box, which is actually I'm going to use for meal planning. And these dates are actually from the 6th till the 12th, because I finished this last week of May, or the first week of May was in my April setup because it started on a Wednesday. So I just followed it through. So this is, I mean, I know it's really the second week of May, but it's my first week in my puja. So then I go through and do some more watercolor, have another bright sun. I didn't do any solar flares on this one. I just made it almost look like a cloud, a sunset. Maybe I'll do a sunset for a weekly spread too. A nice like orange, yellow, and maybe like pink. Maybe. And then I go through with the gold and just kind of highlight behind the week one and then the meal plan. Yeah, and then here's my final flip through. It was a bummer that I bled through right there. I'm pretty sad about it. Yeah, and these are all my pages for May. So if you like it, you know, like and subscribe, all that jazz. And yeah, hopefully I'll keep making these. I really enjoyed it. Okay, bye!